Throughout history, tales of legendary creatures lurking in the depths of our planet's oceans have captivated humanity's imagination. One such intriguing account dates back to 1915 when German U-28 submarine crew reported an astonishing encounter with a massive aquatic creature during a naval operation in the North Atlantic. The enigmatic creature, described as a gigantic aquatic crocodile, has since remained shrouded in mystery, leaving experts and enthusiasts to speculate about its true identity and origin. The story of the U-28 creature begins with the sinking of the British steamer Iberian by the German submarine U-28 on July 30, 1915. As the Iberian succumbed to the torpedo attack and disappeared beneath the waves, an unexpected and violent explosion erupted from the depth. This blast propelled the gigantic aquatic animal high into the air, leaving the crew of the U-28 astounded. Commander von Horstner, along with 6 officers of the watch, had a front-row seat to this spectacle. The creature they witnessed was awe-inspiring. With its estimated length of 60 feet, 4 limbs resembling webbed feet, a long tail, and a pointed head. Despite their astonishment, the crew's inability to capture photographic evidence left the encounter with an air of ambiguity. Some skeptics might dismiss such accounts as mere myths or fabrications, but the credibility of Commander von Horstner's logbook report deserves consideration. His role as a submarine captain instilled a sense of responsibility and accuracy in his official documentation. It is improbable that he had any ulterior motive to invent such an encounter, especially considering the skepticism that usually accompanies such reports. The absence of any motivation for deception lends credence to the authenticity of the event. Furthermore, the sighting's lack of multiple witnesses and the passage of time have rendered any further investigation impossible. As with many historical mysteries, this lack of concrete evidence fuels curiosity but also limits our ability to definitively identify this enigmatic creature. 2 primary theories have emerged over the years in an attempt to explain the identity of the U-28 creature. One theory posits that the creature was a previously unknown species of saltwater crocodile. The similarity noted by the witnesses to a crocodile supports this hypothesis. While no known crocodile has reached the size reported, it is plausible that a relic population of a species like Sarcosuchus imperator, which went extinct around 112 million years ago, may have survived into modern times and evolved to inhabit saltwater, growing to enormous sizes. The second theory proposes that the creature was a surviving member of the mosasaur family, large marine reptiles that existed during the Mesozoic era. Although the largest mosasaur species reached nearly 60 feet in length, they are believed to have gone extinct around 66 million years ago, along with the dinosaurs during the TT extinction event. If this theory were true, it would challenge our understanding of extinction events and species survival. As captivating as these theories are, the reality of the U-28 aquatic creature remains elusive. Without tangible evidence or the ability to examine the creature directly, we are left to ponder the mysteries of the deep ocean and the possibilities that lie therein. Unless another sighting or discovery occurs, the truth behind this century-old encounter may forever be an unsolved mystery. The mystery of Casper, the white octopus, began in 2016 when it was first spotted at a depth of 4,290 meters in the waters of Hawaii. This discovery was significant because no octopus like Casper had ever been observed at such extreme depth. The cephalopod's ghostly appearance earned it the nickname Casper, as it resembles a cartoon character called Casper, the Friendly Ghost. Several intriguing characteristics of Casper and its behavior sparked curiosity among scientists and raised questions about its uniqueness and evolution. Most octopuses have colorful chromatophores in their skin, allowing them to change their appearance and use camouflage to confuse predators. However, Casper lacked these chromatophores, resulting in its pale coloration. The reason for this absence of pigments in its skin remains unclear, but it was suggested that it could be related to a lack of pigments in its food. Researchers saw Casper with its arms wrapped around clutches of eggs attached to tall sponges on the seabed. This egg-laying behavior is very unusual because it was previously theorized that seabed-dwelling octopuses required hard rocks to lay their eggs on. Casper's ability to lay eggs on sponges challenged this assumption and opened up new questions about octopus evolution and reproductive strategies in deep-sea environments. Despite researchers' efforts to learn more about Casper through archived footage from deep-sea surveys, the octopus has not yet been officially named because no physical specimen has been collected for detailed study. Obtaining a physical specimen is crucial for scientists to conduct in-depth examinations and gain a comprehensive understanding of this enigmatic creature. The black demon shark is a legendary creature said to inhabit the waters of the Gulf of California, which is also known as the Sea of Cortez. Descriptions of the creature depict it as a massive shark that is approximately as big as an entire school bus. It resembles a great white shark, but with pitch-black coloration and piercing dark eyes. Even though there is no concrete evidence that the creature exists, there have been many reported sightings of it. Stories of the black demon often paint a terrifying picture of an aggressive predator capable of overturning boats and devouring entire groups of sea lions in a single gulp. Eyewitness accounts suggest a level of ferocity beyond any known shark species, instilling dread in those who claim to have encountered it. Numerous theories attempt to explain the existence of the black demon. One theory suggests it may be a surviving megalodon, a prehistoric shark species that once roamed the oceans but became extinct over 2.5 million years ago. However, the idea of a living megalodon is improbable, as there is no scientific evidence to support such claims. Another plausible explanation is that the black demon could be a hypermelanistic great white shark, meaning it has an overabundance of melanin, resulting in darker skin color. While hypermelanism has been observed in certain shark species, such as cat sharks and rays, it remains uncertain if it can occur in great whites. With all that said, the enduring allure of the black demon lies not only in its potential existence, but also in the broader implications it poses. The legend challenges our understanding of marine biology, biodiversity, and the extent of our knowledge about the ocean's depths. As with other cryptids, the black demon taps into our innate curiosity about the natural world, sparking wonder, respect, and sometimes fear for the vast, unexplored oceans. The Contorted Squid is a mysterious creature that was encountered during an ocean exploration mission in the Gulf of Mexico. This contorted mystery squid may be the most bizarre ever seen. The squid's appearance was unlike any typical squid, as it exhibited an inverted, contorted posture. Its limbs were tightly curled inward, with 4 of them extending stiffly outward, giving it an otherworldly and alien-like appearance. The researchers were astonished by its extreme pose, leading them to describe it as the most bizarre squid they had ever seen. Despite similarities in limb and body shape to squids from the Sacroteuthida genus, the extreme nature of the squid's posture made it virtually unrecognizable as a squid. This puzzling behavior added to the allure of the creature and intensified scientists' desire to understand more about its identity and habits. What do you think? Is this an undiscovered species of squid, or is it something else entirely? Tell me in the comments below. The Tully Monster is one of the most enigmatic and unexplained creatures that ever roamed the earth. This prehistoric aquatic creature, formerly known as Tullimonstrum gregarium, continues to captivate scientists to this day, as its true identity and place in the evolutionary tree are a total mystery. The story of the Tully Monster begins in the 1950s when an amateur fossil collector, Francis Tully, made a remarkable find in the Mason Creek fossil beds of Illinois, USA. Among the fossil-rich shale, Tully discovered strange elongated creatures with a unique combination of features that puzzled scientists from the start. The Tully Monster's fossil consists of an elongated body with a distinctively long tubular structure at the front, often referred to as a proboscis. Its eyes are positioned on either side of the proboscis, and it also has a caudal fin at the rear, resembling a modern fish. The first challenge that scientists faced was how to classify the Tully Monster. Early theories suggested it might be a type of worm or mollusk due to its soft-bodied appearance and the presence of internal structures that resembled radulae, the feeding apparatus found in certain mollusks. One particular theory claims that the Tully Monster was an interdimensional being that arrived from a distant planet. None of these theories can be proven, and the mollusk theory doesn't fully explain all the unique characteristics and features seen in the Tully Monster. To gain a better understanding of the Tully Monster's identity, researchers turned to its ancient environment. The Mason Creek area was once a tropical coastal lagoon, providing valuable insights into the ecosystem this mysterious creature inhabited. By analyzing the other fossils found in association with the Tully Monster, scientists attempted to reconstruct its habitat and potential interactions with other organisms. As technology advanced, paleontologists employed advanced imaging techniques, such as CT scanning, to study the internal structures of the Tully Monster without damaging the delicate fossils. These scans allowed scientists to create 3D models, providing more insight into the creature's internal anatomy. Despite the lack of a definitive answer regarding the Tully Monster's classification, researchers have proposed speculative behaviors based on its anatomy and comparisons with modern animals. Some theorized that the long tubular proboscis might have been used for capturing prey or for sensory purposes. Others thought it could have been a scavenger or a predator preying on smaller creatures in its environment. As time goes on, the mystery of the Tully Monster endures, leaving scientists eagerly anticipating further discoveries and insights. The quest to unveil the true identity and lifestyle of this ancient enigma continues, reminding us that the world is filled with wonder and that there are still many secrets left to uncover in our planet's rich geological history.
Poveglia Island, located in the Venetian lagoon of Italy, has a chilling history that has left its mark on the island and its people. It was once a quarantine station for the sick and dying during the outbreak of the bubonic plague in the 14th century, and later became an asylum for the mentally ill. Today, it is abandoned and considered to be one of the most haunted and mysterious places on Earth. During the height of the Black Plague, ships arriving in Venice were forced to dock at Poveglia Island, where passengers and crew were inspected for signs of infection. Those who were sick were taken to the island and left to die, without any medical assistance or care. The death toll on Poveglia was staggering, with thousands of people dying from the disease. Tens of thousands of sick and dying were dumped here and were left to die. Obviously, there was no hope of coming back from there. Those who were sent here were fully aware of the fact that they were here to only die in agony. To contain the spread of the plague, the dead were burned in large pits on the island. The ones who didn't die but were too sick to fight back were burned alive. It is said that the screams of the dying can still be heard on the island. In the 19th century, Poveglia became an asylum for the mentally ill. The conditions were deplorable, with patients being subjected to cruel and inhumane treatment. There are reports of experiments being conducted on the patients, including lobotomies and other forms of torture. The resident doctor carried out really strange and bizarre experiments on the patients, which caused a lot of deaths and irreversible damage to the patients. Sometime during the 1930s, the doctor himself turned mad and took his own life. The island was eventually abandoned in the 1960s and has remained uninhabited ever since. Its dilapidated buildings and overgrown vegetation make it a haunting site, and many believe that it is still haunted by the ghosts of its past. Visitors to Poveglia have reported feeling a sense of unease and hearing strange noises. Some have claimed to see ghostly apparitions and shadows moving in the abandoned buildings. The island has become a popular destination for paranormal investigators and thrill seekers who are drawn to its eerie atmosphere and terrifying history. One of the most horrifying aspects of Poveglia Island's history is its association with death and burial. As I said before, during the height of the Black Plague, bodies of the deceased were brought to the island for quarantine purposes. With nowhere else to put the corpses, they were burned in large pits. The smoke and ash from the burning bodies would fill the air, adding to the already horrific conditions on the island. So as a result of this, it is estimated that more than half of the island contains the charred remains of the dead people who were burned there. The soil of the island is said to be mixed with human ash, and the bones of the dead are said to be scattered throughout the area. Some visitors to the island have reported finding bone fragments and teeth on the ground. Today, the remnants of the pits where the bodies were burned can still be seen. Some visitors have reported feeling a sense of dread and unease as they walk through the charred remains of the island. Poveglia Island has been shrouded in darkness and mystery for centuries, and its gruesome history has left a mark on the island that can still be felt to this day. In addition to the Black Plague and the asylum for the mentally ill, it is said that many other disturbing events took place on the island. Now let's talk about some of the conspiracy theories surrounding the island. Some people believe that during World War II, Poveglia was used as a military installation by the Italian army. It is said that the island was heavily fortified with bunkers and tunnels, and that human experimentation was conducted on the island during that time. There are rumors that the Italian government was conducting top-secret experiments on prisoners of war, and that many of them were subjected to horrific torture and medical procedures. The experiments were said to be focused on developing new medical treatments and drugs, and some prisoners were subjected to horrific surgical procedures without anesthesia. Others were used as test subjects for new drugs or vaccines, and many of them died as a result of the experiments. It's also believed that the Italian government was experimenting with chemical and biological weapons on the island, and many of the prisoners were exposed to dangerous toxins and pathogens. Some reports suggest that the Italian government was working with the Nazis to develop new weapons, and that some of the experiments were conducted in collaboration with the German military. It has been rumored that the Nazis also used Poveglia Island as a prison camp. The prisoners were kept in terrible conditions, and many of them died from disease, malnutrition, and abuse. It is said that the ghosts of all the prisoners who died on the island still haunt the place to this day, and that their tormented spirits can be felt by those who dare to visit. It is important to note that these are nothing but conspiracy theories, and there is no definitive evidence to prove them. In addition to its gruesome past, Poveglia Island is also home to some mysterious phenomena. There have been reports of strange lights and unexplained sounds coming from the island, and some visitors have claimed to have seen UFOs or other strange objects in the sky above. One theory is that the island is a portal to another dimension, and that the spirits of the dead are able to pass through to our world. Others believe that the island is cursed, and that anyone who visits it will be haunted by the ghosts of its past. Despite its dark past, there are efforts underway to preserve and restore Poveglia Island. The Italian government has put the island up for auction, with plans to turn it into a luxury resort or a research facility. However, many believe that the island is an important historical site and should be left alone. Now let's talk about the origins of Poveglia a bit. The island's origins can actually be traced back to the Roman Empire, when it was used as a trading post. During the Roman Empire, Poveglia Island was known as Popillia. The island was strategically located between the Roman cities of Altinum and Ravenna, and was used as a stopping point for ships traveling between these two cities. Popillia was known for its fertile soil and was an important agricultural center. The island produced a variety of crops, including wheat, grapes, and olives. The island was also home to several small villages, which were connected by a network of roads and canals. In addition to agriculture, Popillia was also known for its production of salt. The island had several salt pans, where seawater was collected and evaporated to produce salt. This salt was highly valued by the Romans, who used it to preserve food and in a variety of other applications. The island also served as a safe haven residence of nearby mainland settlements during times of conflict and invasion. During the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century, Poveglia Island became a refuge for people fleeing the invading barbarian tribes. The island's isolated location in the middle of the lagoon made it difficult for the barbarians to attack, and so many people sought refuge there. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Poveglia Island was used for a variety of purposes, including as a fishing village and as a site for salt production. It was not until the Middle Ages that the island became a place of religious significance, with the establishment of a small Benedictine monastery. The monastery was founded by Benedictine monks who lived on the island in relative isolation from the rest of the world. The monks were known for their piety and their dedication to prayer and contemplation. Despite the island's dark history, we have to admit that it played an important role in the history of the region for over 2,000 years, and its strategic location and natural resources have made it a valuable asset to many different civilizations over the centuries. To conclude this video, Poveglia Island has a long and complex history that spans over 2,000 years. From its early days as a Roman trading post to its role as a mental asylum and quarantine station, the island has played many different roles throughout the centuries. However, the disturbing events that took place on Poveglia during 19th century and the Black Plague have left a lasting mark on the island's history. Once a place of commerce, safety, and spiritual contemplation, Poveglia became a site of horror and tragedy where thousands of people died under horrific circumstances. Today, Poveglia Island is abandoned and overgrown, a haunting reminder of the dark chapters in its history. While there have been proposals to turn the island into a tourist destination or to renovate its abandoned buildings, many people believe that the island should be left untouched as a solemn memorial to the victims of its tragic past.
JoJo the dog-faced boy was a real-life circus performer who lived in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. His real name was Fedor Jeftichu, and he was born in Russia in 1868. JoJo was born with a rare genetic condition called hypertrichosis, which caused hair to grow all over his body, giving him the appearance of a dog. JoJo's father was also a performer in the circus, and he recognized the potential for his son to become a lucrative attraction. He began exhibiting JoJo in various sideshows and circuses across Europe and eventually brought him to the United States to join the Barnum and Bailey Circus in 1884. Despite his success as a performer, JoJo was often mistreated and bullied by his fellow performers and the circus management. He was made to sleep and eat separately from the other performers and was not allowed to socialize with them outside of his act. He was also subjected to cruel jokes and taunts from both the audience and his fellow performers. Despite the mistreatment, JoJo continued to perform for many years, becoming one of the most popular and recognizable sideshow performers of his time. He eventually retired from performing and returned to Russia, where he died in 1904 at the age of 36. JoJo's story highlights the exploitation and mistreatment that many circus performers experienced during this time, particularly those with physical differences. While his story is a tragic one, it also serves as a reminder of the importance of treating all individuals with respect and dignity, regardless of their appearance or abilities. Annie Jones, also known as the Bearded Woman, was a circus performer who gained fame in the late 19th century for her unique appearance. Jones was born in Virginia in 1865 and was one of several siblings who inherited a genetic condition called hypertrichosis, which causes excessive hair growth all over the body, including the face. When Jones was just a few months old, she was discovered by P.T.U. Barnum, the famous circus showman, who saw her unique appearance as an opportunity to attract crowds to his shows. Jones' family agreed to allow her to join the circus, and she began performing as the Bearded Lady at the age of just 9 months old. Jones quickly became a popular attraction, and she traveled with Barnum's circus throughout the United States and Europe, performing in front of thousands of people. She was known for her long, flowing beard and her gentle demeanor, and she was often portrayed as a beautiful and exotic creature. Jones also faced significant challenges and discrimination due to her appearance. She was often subjected to ridicule and harassment by audience members who would throw things at her or make cruel jokes about her appearance. She also faced challenges in her personal life, as men would often try to marry her for her fame or as a publicity stunt. Despite the challenges she faced, Jones continued to perform with Barnum's circus for many years, and she eventually became a beloved figure among her fans. She retired from performing in 1902 and returned to her hometown in Virginia, where she lived out the rest of her life. Today, Annie Jones is remembered as one of the most famous and beloved circus performers of all time. Joseph Merrick, also known as the Elephant Man, suffered from a rare and still unidentified genetic condition that caused severe physical deformities and abnormal growths all over his body. Some theories suggest that he may have had Porteous syndrome or neurofibromatosis type I, but his specific condition remains a mystery. Merrick was born in Leicester, England in 1862, and his condition became apparent early in his childhood. His parents initially accepted and cared for him, but as his condition worsened, they began to reject him. He was eventually sent to live in a workhouse, where he was subjected to harsh living conditions and mistreatment. At the age of 17, Merrick left the workhouse and began a career as a sideshow performer in order to earn a living. He was exhibited in London, where he was marketed as a freak and attracted large crowds of spectators who were curious about his appearance. Despite the cruel treatment he often received from audience members, Merrick remained a kind and gentle soul, and he was known for his intelligence, wit, and artistic talent. He was able to communicate through written notes and letters, and he spent much of his time reading books, writing poetry, and creating intricate models and drawings. In 1884, Merrick was discovered by Dr. Frederick Treves, a prominent physician who became interested in his case and eventually took him under his care. Treves helped Merrick to escape from the sideshow circuit and provided him with a safe place to live, as well as medical treatment and personal care. Despite the compassionate treatment he received from Dr. Treves and others, Merrick's condition continued to deteriorate, and he passed away at the age of 27 due to complications related to his condition. His tragic life story has been the subject of many books, films, and plays, and his legacy lives on as a symbol of the power of resilience and compassion in the face of adversity. George and Willy Muse were born in rural Virginia in the early 20th century, and they were born with albinism, a rare genetic condition that affects skin pigmentation and hair color. Their family was poor and lived in a small community, and they were the only two members of their family with albinism. When they were just 6 and 9 years old, they were kidnapped by a white man named Murray Hill, who convinced their mother to let him take them to join a traveling circus. Hill promised the family that the boys would have a better life and receive an education, but instead, he forced them to perform in a sideshow act called the Ecuadorian Savages, or Men from Mars. The act consisted of George and Willy being dressed in grass skirts and tribal makeup and performing a primitive dance while wearing headdresses made of feathers. They were marketed as freaks and wild men, and they were made to perform in degrading and humiliating ways. Throughout their career, they were subjected to racism and discrimination, and they were often not allowed to eat in the same restaurants or stay in the same hotels as their white co-workers. However, they were eventually able to escape their captors and reunite with their family in Virginia. After leaving the circus, George and Willy were able to live normal lives and raise families of their own. In later years, they became outspoken advocates for the rights of people with disabilities and spoke out against the exploitation and abuse that they had experienced during their time in the circus. Their story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of treating all people with dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance or background. Chang and Eng Bunker were conjoined twins who gained worldwide fame in the 19th century as circus performers. They were born in 1811 in Siam, now Thailand, and they were joined at the chest by a small band of flesh. At the age of 18, the twins were discovered by a British merchant who brought them to the United States to be exhibited as curiosities. They quickly became popular attractions in circuses and sideshows, where they performed various acts that showcased their unique appearance and abilities. Chang and Eng were known for their remarkable physical strength and coordination, and they were able to perform tasks such as playing musical instruments, riding horses, and even rowing a boat. They were also renowned for their outgoing personalities and their ability to charm audiences with their humor and wit. Chang and Eng faced significant challenges in their personal lives. They were often subjected to discrimination and ridicule by people who saw them as freaks or monsters, and they struggled to find acceptance in society. They were also subjected to invasive medical procedures and experiments, as doctors and scientists sought to understand their unique condition. In the 1830s, Chang and Eng made the decision to retire from performing and settle down in the United States. They purchased a farm in North Carolina and became successful farmers, marrying 2 local sisters and raising a large family. They eventually became naturalized American citizens and were highly respected members of their community. The brothers lived into their 60s and remained joined together throughout their entire lives. In 1874, they both became ill with bronchitis, and Chang died first, followed by Eng just a few hours later. Despite their many challenges and struggles, Chang and Eng's story remains a testament to the strength and resilience of the human spirit, and their legacy lives on as a symbol of the power of perseverance and determination. Isaac Sprague, known as the living human skeleton, was born in Massachusetts in 1841. When he was 12 years old, he began to lose weight rapidly, and by the time he was an adult, he weighed only 43 pounds. Despite seeing many doctors and trying various treatments, his weight continued to decline until he passed away in 1887 at the age of 46. Sprague began touring with P.T.U. Barnum's circus in the 1860s, where he was advertised as the thinnest man in the world. He would wear clothing that exaggerated his skeletal appearance and perform various feats, such as lifting heavy weights that were several times his body weight. In addition to his career as a circus performer, Sprague also worked as a bookkeeper for a time, and he was a devout Christian who often spoke about his faith during his circus performances. While he was initially celebrated for his unique appearance, he faced criticism from some who accused him of being a fraud or of having an eating disorder. Despite the mysteries surrounding his condition, Sprague remains a notable figure in the history of the circus sideshow, and his story has inspired many to learn more about the complexities of the human body and the conditions that can affect it. Mirin Dejo, born Arnold Hensky, was a Dutch performer who became famous in the 1940s for his seemingly miraculous ability to pierce his body with sharp objects without any apparent harm. He claimed that he was able to do this through deep concentration and mastery of his body's energy, which he called the life force. Dejo's performances involved piercing his arms, torso, and even his tongue with swords, skewers, and other sharp objects, often in front of large crowds of onlookers. He claimed that he felt no pain during these performances and that the wounds healed almost immediately afterward. Medical professionals were highly skeptical of Dejo's abilities and performed numerous tests on him to try to uncover the secrets behind his performances. Some even accused him of fraud and trickery. In 1948, Dejo died under mysterious circumstances after swallowing a needle during a performance in Germany. Some have suggested that his death may have been the result of foul play or sabotage, while others argued that it was simply a tragic accident. Mirin Dejo remains a fascinating figure in the history of circus performers and sideshow acts. His demonstrations of extreme physical endurance and mastery of mind over matter continue to captivate audiences and inspire fascination to this day. Felix Wehrli, also known as the Elastic Man, was born in Germany in 1880 and suffered from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which gave his skin an unusual flexibility. He joined Barnum and Bailey Circus in the early 1900s and became a popular attraction as the Elastic Skin Man. Wehrli's act involved stretching and contorting his skin in various ways, including stretching the skin on his face and torso to nearly double its size. He could also bend his fingers backward and forward, which added to the shock value of his act. Wehrli was known for his ability to control his skin and could even perform the same tricks with other people's skin. While Wehrli's condition was a source of wonder and entertainment for audiences, it also caused him pain and discomfort. He suffered from joint pain and was prone to dislocations, which made his performances even more impressive. Wehrli continued to perform in the circus until the early 1920s, when he retired from the stage. He lived the rest of his life in Germany and died in 1953. His legacy as the Elastic Man continues to fascinate and intrigue audiences today. Myrtle Corbin, also known as the Four-Legged Woman, was a real-life circus performer who lived in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. She was born in Texas in 1868 and was born with a rare genetic condition called dipygus, which caused her to have 2 pelvises and 4 legs. As a young girl, Myrtle was made to feel ashamed of her condition and was often ridiculed and bullied by her peers. When she was just 13 years old, she was approached by a circus promoter who offered her a job as a performer. Myrtle saw this as an opportunity to escape the ridicule and make a better life for herself, so she agreed to the offer. Myrtle became a popular attraction in sideshows and circuses across the United States, where she was billed as the Four-Legged Woman. She performed various stunts and acts that showcased her unique condition, and she became one of the most popular and highly paid circus performers of her time. Myrtle was often mistreated and bullied by her employers and fellow performers. She was made to sleep and eat separately from the other performers and was not allowed to socialize with them outside of her act. She was also subjected to cruel jokes and taunts from both the audience and her fellow performers. Myrtle continued to perform for many years, becoming one of the most famous and beloved sideshow performers of her time. She eventually retired from performing and settled down with her husband and children in Texas, where she passed away in 1928 at the age of 60. Ann Bevan, also known as the ugliest woman in the world, was a real-life circus performer who lived in the early 20th century. She was born in London in 1874 and grew up in poverty. Ann was born with a rare genetic condition called acromegaly, which causes the bones in the face and hands to grow abnormally large. As a young woman, Ann worked as a nursemaid and a cook, but she was often ridiculed and bullied because of her appearance. In 1903, she was approached by a showman who offered her a job as a circus performer. Ann saw this as an opportunity to make a better life for herself and her children, so she agreed to the offer. Ann became a popular attraction in sideshows and circuses across the United States and Europe, where she was billed as the ugliest woman in the world. She was made to wear a mask to enhance her appearance, and her grotesque appearance was exaggerated through makeup and costumes. Despite her popularity, Ann was often mistreated by her employers, who subjected her to long hours, poor living conditions, and meager pay. Ann continued to perform for many years, and she eventually retired to a small cottage in London. She passed away in 1933 at the age of 59. For centuries, sailors have told tales of a monstrous creature lurking in the depths of the ocean. A beast so large and fearsome that it could drag entire ships beneath the waves. They called it the Kraken. The legend of the Kraken originates from Scandinavian folklore. Described as a massive cephalopod-like creature, the Kraken was said to dwell off the coasts of Norway and Greenland. Early accounts paint it as both a harbinger of doom and a creature of almost supernatural power. In 1752, Eric Pontoppidan, a bishop and naturalist, described the Kraken as a creature so immense that it was often mistaken for an island. He even detailed its feeding habits, claiming it could create whirlpools to drown prey. But could a creature like the Kraken truly exist? To answer that, let's dive into the mysterious world of deep-sea biology. The ocean is a vast and largely unexplored frontier. Over 80% of it remains uncharted, leaving room for countless undiscovered species. Among the known deep-sea giants is the colossal squid, an enormous creature that inhabits the frigid waters of the Southern Ocean. The colossal squid can reach lengths of up to 46 feet and has eyes the size of dinner plates. But what's more intriguing is the evidence of even larger squids, reported by sailors and found in the scars on sperm whales, their natural predators. Throughout history, countless eyewitnesses have claimed to encounter kraken-like creatures. In 1870, French novelist Jules Verne popularized the idea with his book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, where Captain Nemo battles a giant squid. But could these accounts be based on real events? In 2005, marine biologists captured the first images of a live giant squid in its natural habitat, proving that such elusive creatures are real. The giant squid, though smaller than the Kraken of legend, shares many similarities with its mythical counterpart. Modern sonar technology has also detected massive, unidentified objects in the deep ocean. In 2012, Japanese researchers documented a creature's tentacle measuring over 18 feet long. Could these findings hint at an even larger, undiscovered species? In the extreme pressures and darkness of the deep sea, some species exhibit deep-sea gigantism, a phenomenon where animals grow much larger than their shallow water counterparts. This could explain the existence of colossal or even kraken-sized creatures. With over 80% of the ocean's depths unexplored, the idea of undiscovered megafauna is not far-fetched. Every year, scientists discover new species, some of which challenge our understanding of marine biology. Fossil records revealed that ancient cephalopods, like Camarasaurs, once roamed the oceans. Measuring up to 30 feet, these prehistoric creatures prove that massive marine predators have existed before. The Kraken may be a legend, but it's a legend grounded in the mysteries of the deep. Whether it's an exaggeration of real encounters with giant squids or a yet-to-be-discovered species, the oceans hold secrets that could rival even the wildest myths. So, the next time you gaze upon the endless horizon, remember, the Kraken might just be watching you back.
Mikhail Popkov, also known as the Werewolf of Siberia, was born on March 7, 1964, in the town of Angarsk, Siberia. He grew up in a working-class family and was known to have a difficult relationship with his mother. After completing his military service, Popkov joined the police force in 1985, eventually becoming a sergeant. He was regarded as a reliable and hard-working officer and received several commendations for his service. In 1992, Popkov was stationed in the city of Angarsk. This is when the serial killings began. He would cruise around the city in his police car, picking up women who were out alone at night. Once he had them in his car, he would take them to secluded areas and kill them using a variety of methods, including knives, axes, and screwdrivers. He would then dispose of their bodies in remote locations, often in the woods. Mikhail Popkov was given the nickname Werewolf by the Russian media because of the brutal and sadistic nature of his crimes. The term werewolf is often used to describe someone who is believed to have a split personality or who transforms into a beast-like creature at night. In Popkov's case, the nickname was used to describe his violent and animalistic behavior towards his victims. Popkov's modus operandi involved stalking and attacking women who were out alone at night, much like a predator stalking its prey. After brutally murdering his victims, he would often mutilate and sexually assault their bodies. The nickname the werewolf was used by the media to sensationalize Popkov's crimes and add to the public's fear and fascination with the case. Popkov was able to avoid detection for many years by using his position as a police officer to his advantage. He knew how to cover his tracks and was able to manipulate evidence to mislead investigators. He also had a reputation as a tough cop, which made people reluctant to cross him. In addition, he was married with a daughter and appeared to be a normal family man, which made it difficult for anyone to suspect him of such heinous crimes. Popkov was caught in 2012 thanks to DNA technology. Investigators were able to link DNA found at the crime scenes to Popkov, and he was arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder. In 2015, he was found guilty of 22 murders and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2018, he was found guilty of an additional 56 murders, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in Russian history. The story of Mikhail Popkov is a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk behind even the most respectable facade. This serial killer is believed to have operated in the southeastern United States during the 1970s and 1980s. He is suspected of having killed at least 9 women, many of whom were sex workers or drug addicts. The killer was believed to be a police officer or former police officer, as he seemed to have a knowledge of law enforcement tactics and procedures. Unlike the other cops on the list, the Bible Belt Strangler was never actually caught or formally identified. Most of his victims were young women with red or auburn hair who were found along highways in the southeastern United States. The killer's modus operandi involved strangulation, and in some cases, the women's bodies showed signs of sexual assault. Law enforcement agencies in several states worked together to investigate the case, but they were hampered by a lack of evidence and a lack of communication between agencies. Some of the victims were never identified, which made it difficult to connect the crimes and establish a pattern. Over the years, several suspects have been put forward in connection with the case, but none of them have been definitively linked to the murders. At first, the investigators theorized that the killer was a long-haul truck driver who used the interstate highways to travel between states. But it was later concluded that the killer was a police officer who used his knowledge of police procedures to avoid detection. The Bible Belt Strangler case is one of the most perplexing unsolved mysteries in American history. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, the killer was never caught, and the families of the victims were left without answers or closure. Joseph James D'Angelo was born on November 8, 1945, in Bath, New York. He grew up in a dysfunctional household with an abusive father and a mother who was prone to angry outbursts. As a child, he was known to have a temper and was once caught shoplifting. Despite these warning signs, D'Angelo went on to serve in the U.S. Navy and later became a police officer. D'Angelo's crime spree began in the mid-1970s when he began breaking into homes and sexually assaulting women in the Sacramento area. He would often bind his victims and threaten to kill them if they made any noise. Over time, his attacks became more violent, and he began murdering his victims, sometimes killing entire families. D'Angelo was able to avoid detection for years by employing a number of tactics. He would often wear a ski mask to conceal his identity and would frequently change his modus operandi to avoid leaving a pattern. He also had a police scanner, which allowed him to monitor police activity and avoid capture. In addition, he had a job as a police officer, which gave him access to inside information about the investigation. Perhaps the most shocking aspect of D'Angelo's crimes is the fact that he was actively involved in investigating his own crimes. As a police officer, he had access to all of the information about the investigation and was able to monitor the progress of the case. He even went so far as to attend community meetings about the crimes and would occasionally call victims to taunt them. Despite all of his efforts to avoid detection, D'Angelo was finally caught in 2018 thanks to advancements in DNA technology. Investigators were able to link DNA found at crime scenes to a distant relative of D'Angelo's, which ultimately led to his arrest. In 2020, he pled guilty to 13 counts of murder and numerous other charges related to his crimes. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The community and the police department were shocked when it was discovered that Joseph James D'Angelo was a serial killer. His crimes had gone unsolved for decades, and many people had assumed that the perpetrator was either dead or had moved away. When D'Angelo was finally caught, it was a shock to everyone involved in the case. As for the police department, there was a sense of disbelief that one of their own could have committed such heinous crimes. D'Angelo had worked as a police officer in several different departments during his career, and many of his former colleagues were stunned to learn that he was the Golden State Killer. Some even expressed guilt or regret that they had not been able to catch him sooner. Overall, the discovery of D'Angelo's crimes was a traumatic event for the community and law enforcement. But his capture and conviction also brought a sense of closure and justice to the victims and their families. John Martin Crawford was born in Bathurst, New Brunswick in 1962. He joined the RCMP in 1985 and was praised for his exemplary service, receiving numerous awards, including the RCMP Long Service Medal. However, Crawford's facade of a respected police officer was shattered in 1995 when he committed his first murder. Crawford's killing spree began in Prince George, British Columbia, where he strangled to death 35-year-old Jean Hooting. The following year, he killed two more women, Jill Stuchenko and Cynthia Frances Moss. Despite the murders occurring over a period of years, Crawford was able to evade suspicion due to his authority and respected status within the community. Crawford's downfall came in 2012 when advancements in DNA technology allowed investigators to connect the murders to him. They discovered that Crawford had manipulated evidence, taking advantage of his position to cover his tracks. Finally, in 2014, Crawford was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Gerard John Schaefer was a former police officer who turned out to be a sadistic serial killer during the 1970s. Schaefer's crimes spanned over a decade, during which he brutally murdered at least 2 women and is believed to have killed many more. Schaefer was born in Wisconsin in 1946 and grew up in a strict Catholic family. He joined the police force in 1972 and quickly rose through the ranks to become a respected officer. However, behind the facade of respectability, Schaefer had a dark and twisted side that he kept hidden from his colleagues and family. Schaefer's first known murder occurred in 1972 when he killed 2 teenage girls who were hitchhiking in Florida. He was initially arrested for their murders but managed to convince the jury that he was innocent. However, in 1973, Schaefer was arrested again for the murder of another woman. This time, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. During the investigation into Schaefer's crimes, police found evidence linking him to several other unsolved murders. However, due to a lack of concrete evidence, he was never charged with these crimes, even though the investigators are more than 90% sure that he is linked to these unsolved cases. Schaefer's crimes shocked the law enforcement community and the public, as it was believed that someone with his background and position would never be capable of such heinous acts. Schaefer's crimes were particularly disturbing, as he was a police officer and was meant to uphold the law and protect the public. Psychologists who studied Schaefer's case believed that he suffered from a personality disorder, which made him lack empathy and the ability to feel guilt. He also had a fascination with sadomasochism and torture, which was evident in the way he killed his victims. So that's it for today's video. I hope that this video shed light on the rare but disturbing instances where those who are sworn to protect us become the perpetrators of heinous crimes. It's important to remember that these cases are the exception and not the rule, and the vast majority of police officers and law enforcement officials are dedicated professionals who work tirelessly to keep our communities safe. The Overtown Bridge Mystery. If you haven't heard of this before, it's a strange phenomenon that has puzzled researchers for years. The Overtown Bridge is located in Scotland and has been known for a series of unexplained incidents in which dogs have apparently leapt off the bridge to their deaths. In this video, we will explore the history of the Overtown Bridge, the incidents that have occurred over the years, and the various theories proposed to explain this bizarre mystery. The Overtown Bridge was built in 1895 and is located in the village of Milton, near the town of Dumbarton in Scotland. The bridge is a popular tourist attraction and is known for its unusual architecture, with its Gothic arches and parapet walls. The bridge spans a 50-foot drop to a narrow gorge that runs beneath it. The phenomenon of dogs jumping from the Overtown Bridge was first reported in the 1950s. Over the years, numerous dogs have been reported to have leaped from the bridge to their deaths. Most of these incidents occurred in the same spot on the bridge, between the two highest points of the arches. This bizarre phenomenon has led to various theories as to why it occurs. Some suggest that the bridge is haunted by the ghost of Lady Overtown, the wife of the original owner of the bridge, who died in 1908. Others propose that the dogs may be picking up on some kind of scent or sound that is luring them over the edge. In recent years, researchers have studied the area and come up with some possible explanations for the phenomenon. One theory suggests that the bridge's walls and surroundings may create an optical illusion that disorients the dogs and causes them to lose their balance and fall. Another theory is that the bridge's location, which is adjacent to a mink farm, may be attracting the dogs, as mink urine has been shown to have a strong attraction for dogs. However, some researchers believe that there may be more to the story. Dr. David Sands, a Scottish animal behaviorist, has studied the incidents and has proposed that the dogs may be experiencing a form of canine suicide. He suggests that certain breeds, such as retrievers, may have a genetic predisposition towards suicidal behavior. Despite these studies and theories, the mystery of the Overtown Bridge remains unsolved, and the phenomenon continues to attract visitors and researchers from around the world. There have been many controversies surrounding the incidents, including accusations of animal cruelty and calls for the bridge to be closed to the public. In conclusion, the Overtown Bridge mystery is a bizarre phenomenon that has puzzled researchers for years. While there are several theories as to why dogs have been leaping from the bridge, the true cause of the phenomenon remains unknown. Whether it is a haunting, an optical illusion, or some other unknown factor, the mystery of the Overtown Bridge continues to fascinate and perplex visitors and researchers alike. I hope that this video has given you some insight into the history and the strange occurrences surrounding this enigmatic bridge.
Choriomania was a mysterious mass psychogenic illness that began in Europe during the 1020s. It is characterized by the compulsion to dance uncontrollably for a prolonged period of time. The mysterious illness kept recurring for centuries, and hundreds and thousands of people literally danced themselves to death, until it finally came to an end during the 17th century. One of the biggest and well-documented cases of choriomania was the one that occurred during the 13th century. In 1374, on the streets of Aachen, Germany, crowds of people gathered near a river called Rhine, and began to dance in a hysterical manner. They were completely incoherent and frenzied, with no sense of control or rhythm. They were in a state of mania that had overcome both their minds and bodies. Within weeks, this mysterious illness spread to France and the Netherlands. Hundreds of people began to frantically jump and leap for days on end. Another big case took place in 1518, in Strasbourg, eastern France. Sometime during the month of July in 1518, a woman named Mrs. Trophia began dancing on the street in front of everyone. At first, people thought nothing of it. But several days passed by, and the woman hasn't stopped dancing. Within a week, more than 30 other people joined her and began to dance in a similar manner. They literally kept going long past the point of injury. The city authorities were eventually alarmed by the ever-increasing number of dancers. They theorized that more dancing was the solution to this mass hysteria, so they entered guild halls for the dancers to gather in, encouraged more people to start dancing as well, and hired a couple of musicians to accompany the dancers. Little did they know that this would only make things worse. As many as 400 people were consumed by the dancing hysteria, and they kept going on for days on end, until many of them died from cardiac arrest due to exertion. It is believed that the 1518 incident marked the end of the dancing plague. Did you know that you can actually trick your brain into killing you? I gotta admit, the nocebo effect is more of a psychological phenomenon than an actual mental disorder. It is still interesting nonetheless. The nocebo effect is the total opposite of the placebo effect, which is also another psychological phenomenon. Placebo effect occurs mainly during the presence of a health condition. It is when someone experiences an improvement of symptoms after taking a fake medical substance. This happens because the person taking this fake substance has the strong expectation that it will treat their conditions. This means that you can literally treat your physical ailments by just using the power of your mind. Now, the horrifying opposite to the placebo effect is the nocebo effect. It is when you start experiencing bad side effects after taking a medication, just because you are expecting it to happen. In other words, the nocebo effect refers to the harmful and sometimes life-threatening outcomes that result from your negative anticipations and beliefs. The nocebo effect is not only associated with medication. There are many instances where it can occur without the presence of medication. Just because you have a strong belief that something bad will happen to you, whether after taking a medication, or eating or drinking something, there's a chance it might actually happen. During the 1980s in the USA, a group of seemingly healthy men who came from Southeast Asia as immigrants mysteriously died in their sleep for no apparent reason. Doctors were totally mystified by these deaths and were not able to figure out what exactly killed these men. In the end, they decided to give this problem a name: sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome. 25 years later, a professor named Shelley Adler came up with an explanation for the death of these immigrants in her book, Sleep Paralysis, Nightmares, Nocebos, and the Mind-Body Connection. After conducting interviews with Southeast Asian populations, Shelley Adler came to the conclusion that the men were killed by their strong cultural beliefs. Many Southeast Asian immigrants actually believed that the ancestor spirits, who protected them from harm in Laos, would be unable to travel across the ocean to the United States and thus could not shield them from spiritual dangers. They also believed in the existence of a nightmare spirit, referred to as the dubbed Sog. It is believed that this evil spirit would visit people in their sleep and kill them by crushing their chest. This by far is the most logical and reasonable explanation for why a group of 116 seemingly healthy immigrants would suddenly die in their sleep, one by one, for no apparent reason. Especially just after arriving to the US. Another instance where the nocebo effect killed someone was one that occurred during the 1700s. A group of students decided to play a prank on their medical professor's assistant because they disliked him. They kidnapped him and told him that he was about to get beheaded. They blindfolded him, laid his head on a chopping block, and draped a wet cloth over his neck. Convinced he was about to die, as soon as the wet cloth touched his neck, he died instantly. Up to this day, scientists still don't understand why the strange nocebo and placebo phenomenon happens. It is one of psychology's biggest mysteries. This psychological condition is by far the creepiest one on this list. Prosopagnosia is a brain disorder characterized by the inability to recognize or see faces. It is also called face blindness. Prosopagnosia can either be congenital or acquired from a brain injury. People who live with face blindness are not able to recognize the faces of their loved ones and friends, or even their own face when they look in the mirror. Just imagine the horror of having to deal with prosopagnosia on a daily basis. The horror of living in a world where everyone looks the exact same to you, and you are unable to know how the person you are looking at truly feels about you, because you can't see their facial expressions. People with prosopagnosia often avoid all social interactions, and they find it hard to form bonds and relationships with other people. It is believed that the first ever case of prosopagnosia dates back to 1976. The condition is fairly rare. Roughly 2% of the general public have prosopagnosia. We all have some kind of fear or phobia. Some people have an extreme fear of things that others see as relatively harmless, such as spiders, heights, social interactions, tight spaces, oceans, etc. While these irrational fears may be uncomfortable to experience, they are completely harmless, because they involve things that are totally avoidable. If you fear spiders, you can choose not to look at them, or avoid places that they inhabit. If you have a fear of heights, you can avoid towers, skyscrapers, lighthouses, etc. Now, what about fears that involve the unavoidable, like the fear of death? Or, something even more bizarre, the fear of food? One strange phobia that involves fear of something that is unavoidable is the fear of sleep. It is called somnophobia. Somnophobia is an extreme irrational fear of falling asleep. People who suffer from somnophobia are convinced that they will die in their sleep, or experience horrific nightmares. People with somnophobia will often spend days, and in rare instances, weeks, completely depriving themselves of sleep due to this fear. Somnophobia is a very serious condition because it may cause chronic, long-term sleep deprivation in some people. Chronic sleep deprivation is associated with a myriad of health problems, like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, etc. Sleep deprivation even increases your chances of dying from an accident. When you deprive yourself from sleep for a long period of time, your brain will not function properly. Your ability to stay alert will be reduced, which will create a serious lapse in attention that, for example, could easily cause a car accident. Heart anxiety, or cardiophobia, is a rare type of extreme anxiety that is fixated on the possibility of experiencing a deadly cardiac event, particularly a sudden cardiac arrest or a heart attack. People with cardiophobia have to deal with this fear on a daily basis, because they believe that a deadly cardiac event may happen at any moment. This causes them to make frequent visits to the emergency room, in order to be reassured that nothing is going to happen. You'd think that after frequent visits to the ER, they'll stop worrying about their heart. But that's not the case at all. People with cardiophobia still continue to fear the worst, even after all the tests have proved that their heart is completely fine and functioning properly. Their extreme anxiety spirals them down a rabbit hole of terrifying thoughts that make them believe they will definitely die from a lethal cardiac arrhythmia. There may be physical symptoms that they complain about, but they are nothing but manifestations of panic and fear. Even though these symptoms happened hundreds of times before, and countless doctors have told them their heart is in good health, they're still convinced it will stop.
Located just 30 kilometers north of Damascus, Sednaya Prison is a high-security facility infamous for its role in the Syrian government's brutal crackdown on dissent. Originally built to house military personnel, it has become a chamber of terror for thousands of civilians, activists, and perceived enemies of the state. Since the start of the Syrian civil war in 2011, the prison has been a key site for mass detentions, torture, and executions, making it a focal point of international human rights investigations. Former prisoners describe Sednaya as a labyrinth of suffering. Divided into multiple wings, the prison's cells are overcrowded, dark, and unsanitary. Inmates are stripped of basic human rights, enduring conditions designed to break their spirits. It is estimated that tens of thousands have passed through Sednaya since 2011, with thousands never emerging alive. Amnesty International's reports detail systematic executions, with up to 50 people hanged at a time in the so-called execution room. Torture is not just a tool of punishment in Sydney, it is a methodical practice used to instill fear and extract false confessions. One of the most harrowing practices is the use of welcome parties, brutal beatings inflicted on prisoners as they enter the facility, setting the tone for the torment to follow. For many detainees, their time in Sydney ends in the execution chambers. After sham trials lasting mere minutes, prisoners are taken to the basement where they face their grim fate. The executions are carried out in secrecy, often during the night. Bodies are then transported to mass graves, erasing evidence of the atrocities. Mass graves, the outskirts of the prison, silent witnesses to the horrors committed within. The global community has condemned Sydney as a symbol of state-sanctioned brutality. Human rights organizations continue to document testimonies and satellite evidence to hold perpetrators accountable. Against all odds, some have survived Sydney, and their stories are testaments to the resilience of the human spirit. These survivors are now voices for the voiceless, shining a light on a darkness the world must confront. Sydney is not just a prison, it is a symbol of unchecked tyranny. But awareness is the first step toward change. Share their stories. Demand accountability. Together, we can fight for justice. Ettore Majorana was an Italian physicist who was born in Sicily, Italy, 1906. He made a notable prediction that his breakthrough discovery would revolutionize the world. Ettore decided to pursue physics at the University of Rome when he was 22. In 1937, he made a significant breakthrough by discovering neutrinos, which put him ahead of his time by 4 decades. However, Majorana was dissatisfied with the results and destroyed many of his unpublished studies, leaving his true potential unknown. In 1938, Ettore mysteriously withdrew all his money from the bank and left a note to his family, asking for forgiveness and to always remember him. He sent a telegram to his colleagues, urging them to forget everything he had written and that he was going home, but he never returned. Investigators found evidence that Majorana bought a steamboat ticket and had a witness claiming to have sailed with him. However, the company employees lost the information about his ticket, and his traveling companions were uncertain if they had indeed sailed with him. Majorana's relatives published his photos and information in newspapers, hoping someone would identify him, but no trace of him was found. Some speculate that Majorana realized the dangers of atomic energy and wanted to protect humanity from its potential harm. Mussolini's regime was in power at the time in Italy, and it is believed that Majorana knew the risks of his discovery falling into the wrong hands. This theory is supported by the fact that Mussolini personally supervised the search for Majorana after his disappearance. Recent findings suggest that Majorana lived in South America from 55 to 59 based on a preserved photograph. Why was he in South America? And why didn't he return back to Italy after the fall of Mussolini? The reasons for his presence in South America and his ultimate fate remain a mystery to this day. Within the depths of this individual resided a total of 24 distinct personalities. His name was Billy Milligan, a man whose life story will fascinate you. Billy's notoriety stemmed from being accused of assaulting 3 women, a crime that etched his name into history as the first man to be acquitted by a court due to the presence of his fragmented identities. Billy's early years were marred by the shadows of his fractured self. Born in 1955, his childhood was a turbulent journey. The foundations of his life crumbled as his father succumbed to mental illness and took his own life. Billy's stepfather later faced accusations of pedophilia and the unspeakable act of molesting young Billy himself. It was during his youth that alternate personalities began to surface. By the age of 20, Billy had already earned his first criminal conviction for robbery. However, it was in 1977 that he committed a heinous act, assaulting 3 women on the campus of Ohio State University. This crime could have led to a lengthy prison sentence. Yet, an unconventional defense strategy was devised, hinging on the intricate web of his mental instability. Billy was referred to a psychiatrist who, after careful evaluation, diagnosed him with schizophrenia. Subsequently, he was confined to a psychiatric institution. It was within the walls of this asylum that Billy's story took an astonishing turn. His multiple personalities began to manifest, each asserting its individuality in a surreal dance of psychological complexity. Among the multiple identities, 10 emerged as primary, exerting their influence over the others. Notable among them was the scholarly and erudite Arthur, a persona that possessed vast knowledge across various sciences. Arthur played an important role in managing Billy's day-to-day affairs. On the other end of the spectrum was the spirited and fierce Rambo, representing a Yugoslav communist named Rigor Rodaskovic. This persona, an expert in weaponry, assumed control in intense situations to safeguard the collective entity of Billy. The mystery of Billy's psyche deepened as another identity of Billy revealed itself. Adelana, a 19-year-old lesbian persona, harbored desires for intimacy that turned malevolent. Within the tapestry of these personas emerged a unifying figure, a guiding teacher. This presence manifested to assist the renowned writer Daniel Keyes in narrating Billy Milligan's narrative, ultimately resulting in a book that documented Billy's enigmatic existence. Among Billy's multiple identities, there were those gifted in the arts and music, each specializing in distinct genres of painting and musical instrumentation. These expressions of creativity added further layers to the complexity of Billy's condition. After a decade within the confines of a mental institution, Billy was released and allowed to live freely in society after the medical professionals acknowledged his gradual integration and stabilization. Yet, this chapter of the story reached its inevitable conclusion in 2014 when Billy passed away at the age of 59. The story of the Man in the Iron Mask begins in the late 17th century in the heart of France during the reign of King Louis XIV. The legend of the Man in the Iron Mask emerges from the depths of secrecy as a masked prisoner is brought to the Bastille fortress. But who was this mysterious man? Was he a disgraced nobleman? A political threat? A royal relative? The whispers of the past point to all of these possibilities. The prisoner's face was hidden behind a heavy iron mask, allowing him to see but not be seen. Why go to such extraordinary lengths to conceal his identity? Was it to protect him from assassination attempts? Or to prevent him from revealing shocking truths? The Man in the Iron Mask was held captive in various prisons throughout his lifetime, including the Bastille and the fortress of Pignerol. The strictest security measures were employed to ensure his confinement, raising questions about the significance of his captivity. According to historical records, the Man in the Iron Mask was believed to be none other than Louis XIV's older brother, Philippe I, Duke of Orleans. The theory suggests that Philippe was imprisoned to avoid any potential claims to the throne. But why was he masked? Other theories stated that the Man in the Iron Mask may have been a high-ranking official who perhaps knew too much. Or maybe the Man in the Iron Mask had a severe and haunting facial deformity, which is why his face was kept hidden behind a mask. It is important to note that these are merely theories, with little to no evidence backing them up. Over the centuries, historians and researchers have tirelessly searched for any clues that could shed light on the true identity of the Man in the Iron Mask. Yet, despite their efforts, the mystery remains unsolved. The identity and the fate of this masked prisoner continue to elude us, leaving behind a legacy of intrigue and speculation. In the annals of history, there are certain mysteries that continue to captivate the imagination, defying explanation and leaving an indelible mark on the collective consciousness. One such enigma that has puzzled people for centuries is the baffling story of the Green Children of Woolpit. The story dates back to the 12th century, during the reign of King Stephen. According to historical accounts, the villagers of Woolpit were astonished one day to discover two children, a brother and a sister, wandering near the edge of a field. What set these children apart was their peculiar appearance. Their skin was a distinctly green hue, their clothing was unfamiliar, and they spoke an unintelligible language. Fearful and perplexed, the villagers initially regarded the children with suspicion, believing them to be otherworldly or supernatural beings. However, their compassion prevailed, and the villagers eventually took the children in, providing them with nourishment and care. Over time, the children's skin gradually lost its green hue, and they began to adapt to their new surroundings. As the girl and boy learned English and integrated into the community, they revealed the remarkable tale of their origins. According to their account, they hailed from a subterranean world illuminated by a perpetual twilight. In this subterranean realm, the inhabitants subsisted on a diet primarily consisting of green beans, which the children claimed was responsible for their unusual skin color. The circumstances that led to the children's arrival on the surface are less clear. In some accounts, the children mentioned hearing the loud noise or experiencing disorientation before finding themselves near the entrance of the cave or tunnel that led to the surface. The children reportedly had a limited understanding of time and struggled to convey how long they had been in the subterranean world. Their perspective on time might have been affected by the constant dim illumination of their environment. The accounts of the subterranean world described by the green children of Woolpit are limited in detail, and their descriptions are often vague and fantastical. The information provided by the children is found in various historical records, including the writings of two primary sources from the time, Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh. These accounts have been passed down through the centuries and have contributed to the mystique surrounding the story. So, who were these mysterious children? Were they visitors from another planet? Or another dimension? Assuming the subterranean civilization that they described actually exists, we have no idea whether this place exists on Earth or somewhere on another planet. If it exists on Earth, then this means we've been literally living above subterranean civilizations all this time without realizing it. Now, of course, that is the supernatural explanation. There are scientific explanations which make a bit more sense. According to these explanations, the children may have suffered from a rare medical condition, such as hypochromic anemia or porphyria, which could have caused their greenish appearance. This theory, however, does not explain the children's account of their origins. The tale of the green children of Woolpit has left an enduring legacy, inspiring art, literature, music, and even modern discussions about extraterrestrial life and mysterious phenomena. The story's ambiguity and fantastical elements make it a perennially fascinating topic of exploration and speculation. Now I want you to tell me in the comments below, what do you think is the most plausible theory regarding the mystery of the children of Woolpit?
This is a disease that makes people zombies. It is common in Africa, and it is caused by a parasite called Trypanosoma brucei. It is transmitted by tsetse fly, which is a large biting fly that is common in tropical Africa. Initially, the infection will cause severe headaches, aching muscles and itching. In the late stages, also known as the neurological stages, when the parasite has completely invaded the brain, the symptoms become more obvious and severe. The host will find it hard to concentrate. They become irritable, their speech is slurred, and they stop eating. Their daily circadian rhythm becomes disrupted to such an extent that they can't sleep at night and find it almost impossible to stay awake during the day. It even becomes very hard for them to do simple mental tasks, such as drawing a straight line. This is an infection that carries nightmarish qualities, reducing many of its victims to a zombie-like state before they go into a coma and die. Trypanosoma brucei infection can be treated if detected during the early stages, though the treatment is very complex and requires the intervention of highly skilled doctors who specialize in the disease. Once the parasite reaches the brain, the chances of survival become lower. Even if you manage to survive the disease, you will be left with permanent brain damage. This brain-eating parasite is the stuff of nightmares. The brain-eating amoeba, also known as Naegleria fowleri, is a parasite that lives in lakes and rivers. It can be found anywhere in the world, but it is more common in the United States, particularly in Florida and Texas. The most common way of being infected by this parasite is when infected water goes into your nose while you're swimming or diving. Once the parasite enters your nose, it will crawl to your brain and literally start feeding on its tissues. As the parasite penetrates deeper into the brain, you will start experiencing severe symptoms, such as delusions, hallucinations, extreme phobia of light, extremely painful headache that can make you scream, seizures, vomiting, nausea, and coma. There's almost no way to effectively treat this parasitic infection. Once the parasite enters into your body, death becomes imminent. It takes between 7 to 10 days for the parasite to kill its host. Despite all of this, you have no reason to worry about contracting this parasitic infection, because getting infected by this parasite is extremely, and I mean extremely, rare. There are only 34 cases of this infection during the past 10 years. Fatal familial insomnia is an extremely rare genetic brain disorder. It is characterized by a gradual slide into dementia. Along the way, you will experience panic attacks, paranoia, phobias, high blood pressure, hallucinations, rapid heartbeat, excessive sweating, and a complete inability to sleep. Fatal familial insomnia affects the thalamus, the part of the brain that controls the sleep-wake cycle, causing the victim to stay awake for unusually long periods of time. These insomnia episodes will keep recurring for months on end, until you eventually die due to multiple organ failures. During the last months of your life, you will completely lose touch with reality and become clinically insane. Your subconscious will merge with your conscious, and ultimately, you will enter into a state of dementia. The disease is completely incurable and has an average duration of 18 months. Kuru disease is a rare neurological disease. It is common in cannibalistic tribal areas in Oceania, where people eat the brains of the deceased during burial rituals. The people from these tribes eat the brain tissues of a loved one after death as a sign of respect. This tissue eating results in the transmission of an infectious protein known as a prion. Kuru disease is also known as the laughing sickness, as one of the first symptoms is pathological bursts of laughter. The loss of emotional control is swiftly followed by a total lack of physical control. Sufferers will shake uncontrollably and completely lose control over their movements. There is no cure for this rare medical condition, and death soon follows after the first appearance of symptoms. Stoneman Syndrome is a mysterious genetic condition that affects the skeletal and connective tissues of the body. A mutation of the body's repair mechanism causes the muscles, tendons, and ligament to slowly turn into bones. The condition is very rare, affecting only 1 in a million people worldwide. The condition starts from the shoulders and neck, making its way down to the legs. A second bone grows over the first one in a process known as heterotopic ossification. Surgical efforts to remove the second bone will trigger even more bone growth. In some extreme cases, the whole body could become ossified to the point that the victim will become equivalent to an inanimate stone sculpture. In some cases, Stoneman Syndrome can be fatal if bone growth is stimulated in the chest area. As more bone growth is stimulated, chest movements become restricted, leading to respiratory arrest and then death. In 1973, a man named Harry Eastlack developed this disease. His body became ossified. He was able to move only his lips. Currently, there's no effective treatment that can cure the Stoneman Syndrome or stop its progression.
The most brutal animal attacks iceberg. In case you don't know what an iceberg is a chart that sorts things by obscurity or strangeness. So starting from the tip of the iceberg, this is the least obscure part of the whole chart. This part contains entries that you probably already know about, or entries that are not as disturbing or strange as the entries below. As we go deeper in the chart, things will get more obscure and weird. The tip of the iceberg. Known as the biggest and worst shark attack in human history, the USS Indianapolis shark attack took place during the 1940s. It was July 29, 1945, when the Indianapolis sailed from Guam to meet the battleship Idaho in the Leyte Gulf in the Philippines and prepare for an invasion of Japan. It never reached its destination. Just one day after the Indianapolis left Guam, it got torpedoed by a Japanese submarine in the Pacific Ocean. Just a couple of hours before the Japanese assault on the Indianapolis, the sailors were playing cards together, dancing, reading books, and having a good time. Some spoke with the ship's priest, Father Thomas Conway. They were totally oblivious to the horrors that were about to ensue in the following hours. After the USS Indianapolis was torpedoed, the 1,195 men on board had just two choices: plunge into waters and risk drowning, or getting eaten alive by sharks, or stay on the ship ravaged by flames. Obviously, they chose the former, and what happened next was the grisliest shark attack of all time, with the Pacific turning red while survivors watched as hundreds of their crewmates were eaten alive by white-tip and tiger sharks. Only 317 individuals survived the horrific ordeal. The rest were eaten alive. The attack lasted for 4.5 days. Yes, you heard that right. The 317 survivors had to endure this living nightmare for almost 5 entire days. One of the survivors, Edgar Harrell, was just 20 when he watched the traumatic events unfold in front of his eyes. All we heard was men being eaten alive. Every day, every night, you would hear a blood-curdling scream and look and see someone going under. The USS Indianapolis attack was the biggest attack on humans ever recorded. Layer 2. Osama bin Laden was a rogue elephant in India, named after the terrorist leader, Osama bin Laden. In 2004, Osama went on a 2-year rampage and killed at least 30 people. He was also responsible for the destruction of a property in the Sonitpur district of the Indian state of Assam. Osama was said to be a very strong elephant that did not fear firecrackers or fire like other elephants. In December 2006, Indian officials issued a shoot-to-kill directive. Authorities spent a couple of days looking for Osama, until they eventually found him on the 18th of December, in a tea plantation near the town of Bahali. Drums and fire were used to trap Osama in the corner of the plantation. He was then approached by hunter Daipan Phukan. When Osama realized that he was about to be killed, he charged the hunter. Phukan panicked and immediately started firing at Osama as he was rapidly charging towards him, until he died. Phukan said, "It was charging towards me and I kept firing. Another few yards and it would have run over me." Gustav is a very large serial killer crocodile that lives in the country of Burundi. He is known for being a notorious man-eater, killing at least 200 people on the banks of the Ruzizi River and the shores of Lake Tanganyika. He had been terrorizing villages for decades, and his diet mainly consists of humans. Gustav has obtained legendary status in Burundi and is greatly feared by the locals. Gustav was given his name by the herpetologist, Patrice Fay, who has been studying and investigating him since the 90s. Not a lot is known about him, since he was never actually captured, and sightings of him are very rare. Though based on the few reported sightings of him, scientists and investigators were able to know some details about him. His exact weight and length are unknown, though according to the scientists who saw him, he is estimated to be more than 20 feet in length, and 900 kilograms in weight. Scientists also believe that he could be anywhere between 60 to 100 years old, and that he is likely still growing. Scientists also reported that Gustav has 3 big bullet scars on his body, and a deep wound on his right shoulder. Gustav's uncommon size and weight make him unable to hunt agile prey such as fish, antelope, and zebra, so he is forced to attack larger animals such as hippopotamus, large buffalo, and humans. The last reported sighting of Gustav was in 2009. No one knows if he is still alive or not. The Tsavo man-eaters were a pair of man-eating serial-killing lions that lived in the Tsavo region of Kenya. The lion pair killed 135 construction workers on the Kenya-Uganda Railway in 1898. The Tsavo man-eaters are some of the most widely studied man-eating animals, given their unusual behavior of hunting humans as a pair. The Tsavo lions would often stalk the campsites of workers and then drag the workers from their tents at night to kill and devour them. The attacks stopped for a couple of months, but then they occurred again. The new wave of attacks was more intense than the previous one, with almost daily killings. The locals tried to scare off the lions by building campfires and thorn fences around the camps, all to no avail. The lions would leap over or crawl through the thorn fences. Early in their killing spree, only one lion at a time would enter the inhabited areas and seize victims, but later they became more brazen, entering together and each seizing a victim. On the 9th of December, 1898, John Henry Patterson was sent to hunt the Tsavo pairs. Patterson wrote about his hunting experience in his book, The Man-Eaters of Tsavo. Patterson said that he wounded the first lion with one bullet from a high-caliber rifle. He shot it in its hind leg, but it escaped. Later, it returned at night and began stalking Patterson as he tried to hunt it. He shot it through the shoulder, penetrating its heart with a more powerful rifle. Surprisingly, the lion survived the heart-piercing shot and was able to escape from Patterson for the second time, though only temporarily. The lion later succumbed to its wounds and Patterson found it lying dead on the next morning, somewhere near the place it was shot. Some time later, Patterson was able to locate the second lion. It took 11 entire days and 9 bullets for this one to die. Patterson said that it died gnawing on a fallen tree branch, still trying to reach him. Layer 3. The Champawat tiger was a Bengal serial-killing tigress that killed at least 400 people in Nepal and India. The killings started in the last years of the 19th century and ended in 1907. The attacks began in a village in western Nepal. A group of hunters was sent to put an end to the tiger's rampage, but they failed. She was then ambushed for the second time by the Nepalese army. They tried capturing or killing her, but they also failed, though they were able to force her to abandon her territory. The tiger later crossed the borders and entered India, where she continued her killing activities in the Kumaon district. In 1907, she was shot and killed in the town of Champawat in India by the British hunter Jim Corbett, with the help of 300 villagers. After killing the Champawat tiger, Jim Corbett acquired a reputation as the leading hunter of man-eaters. The Champawat tiger was listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the tiger with the highest number of victims in existence. The Sankabetsu brown bear incident was the most brutal bear attack in Japanese history. Between December 9th and December 14th, a huge spree-killing brown bear entered several houses in Hokkaido and killed their settlers. The most gruesome attack took place on the first day of the killing spree, the 9th of December. At around 10 a.m., the giant brown bear turned up at the Ota family house, where Abe Mayu had been taking care of a baby. The bear entered through the main door of the farmhouse and bit the baby on the head, killing it instantly. Mayu saw what happened and tried to fight back against the bear by throwing firewood at it. She then attempted to escape, but the bear knocked her down and dragged her into the forest. According to investigators, the scene resembled a slaughterhouse, with blood puddled on the farmhouse floor. Attacks of similar nature kept occurring for about 5 days, with the bear ransacking multiple properties, killing their owners, and eating their winter food stockpile. The bear was eventually tracked down by a team of hunters and killed on December 14th. The hunters spotted the bear resting near a Japanese oak. One of the hunters, Yamamoto, approached the bear and shot it in the heart and the head. In 1991, a very huge serial-killing lion terrorized the people of the Mefue settlement in Zambia. It killed and ate around 6 people in Mefue. Sometime during that same year, the lion was killed by the American hunter, Wayne Hosek, in the Luang War River Valley. You may think that a number of 6 fatalities isn't that impressive compared to other attacks on the list, but what makes this case special is that the Mefue lion was actually the largest man-eating lion in existence. It measured over 10 feet in length and 500 pounds in mass. After the lion was killed, its body was taken to be displayed at the Field Museum in Chicago. Layer 4. Over the course of a few years in the early 20th century, the leopard of the Central Provinces, also known as the devilish cunning panther, killed over 150 people in the Central Provinces of British India. Many of the victims were women and children. According to reports, the leopard killed a victim once every 2 to 3 days, sometimes 20 to 30 kilometers apart. The tribal communities in the area were so terrified of the leopard that they seldom ever left their houses unattended or unarmed. Sometime during the early 20th century, the leopard was fatally shot with a projectile propelled from a gas pipe. In the Principality of Ansbach, in 1685, a man-eating wolf known as the Wolf of Ansbach attacked and killed an undetermined number of people. The wolf began as a nuisance, preying on livestock, but soon, it started attacking children. The people of Ansbach thought the creature was a werewolf. The wolf was driven from a nearby woodland during a planned hunt, and the locals chased it with dogs until it jumped into an exposed well for cover. The wolf was killed after being trapped, and its body was paraded around the city market. The crowd dressed it in a man's clothing, then covered its head with a mask, wig, and beard, to give it the look of the former mayor. The wolf's body was then left hanging from a gibbet for all to see, until it was later preserved in a museum nearby. Layer 5. The Kali River Goonch attacks were a string of fatal attacks on humans, believed to have been carried out by a goonch weighing 90 kilograms. The attacks took place on the banks of the Kali River, in India and Nepal, between 1998 and 2007. In April 1998, a 17-year-old boy named Dil Bahadur was dragged underwater in front of his girlfriend and several witnesses while swimming in the Kali River. A massive 3-day search was launched, but Dil Bahadur was never found. It's as if Bahadur was dragged into another dimension by something evil. 3 months later, a similar incident occurred. A young boy was pulled underwater in Kali River, as his father was watching him helplessly. He was never found. The final attack occurred in 2007, when an 18-year-old Nepalese man also disappeared without a trace in the Kali River, after being dragged down by something unknown. The Kali River attacks were later investigated by the British biologist, Jeremy Wade. Jeremy believes that the perpetrator is most likely an unusually large goonch. During 2016, at least 12 children are said to have been brutally killed by stray dogs in the state of Uttar Pradesh, in northern India. On the 1st of May, 2016, an 11-year-old boy named Khalid Ali was on his way to school, when a pack of stray dogs ambushed him and mauled him to death. A witness named Amin Ahmed said, "I heard loud screams from the neighboring orchard in the morning. What I saw was gory. This little boy, who was being attacked by dogs, tried to climb up a tree, but the animals pulled him down and mauled him. I ran towards the village for help. By the time the villagers arrived, the boy was dead, and the dogs had vanished into the forest." The boy's mother, Mezabine, said, "He died on the spot. He was so badly mauled there was no point taking him to the hospital." Khalid was not the only victim of mauling that day. 2 more children were also killed by the pack of stray dogs, in the same village, just a couple of hours after Khalid was killed. The locals were so terrified that they stopped sending their children to school. Locals believe that the child-killing dogs are no normal stray dogs, but a rare unknown breed of man-eating dogs. Many of the people who saw the dogs reported that they were slightly bigger than usual and their jaws were like that of a jackal. This entry refers to a brutal bear attack that took place in Algonquin Provincial Park, in Ontario. 3 boys, George Halfkenny, 16, Mark Halfkenny, 12, and Billy Rindrus, 15, were stalked and killed by a big black bear while fishing near Radiant Lake. Not a lot is known about this incident. Layer 6. In Uganda, chimpanzees are attacking people as part of a troubling trend that has resulted in crop loss and even fatalities. According to National Geographic, the issue has existed for a while, citing a 2014 event in which a chimpanzee kidnapped a 2-year-old boy from his mother and brutally mauled him. A mother was doing some digging in the garden when a chimpanzee suddenly emerged out of nowhere and snatched her 2-year-old child while she was busy getting water. The child screamed in terror, which caused the other villagers to pay attention and chase after him, but it was too late. The chimp broke off the child's arms, fatally injured him on the head, and opened the stomach and removed the kidneys. All of this happened in less than a minute. After this incident, other attacks of a similar nature kept occurring over the years. It's unclear why the chimps in Uganda are targeting children. A massive predatory bird soared through the skies of New Zealand hundreds of years ago, striking terror into the hearts of humans. The terrifying, and very real, bird, known to scientists as Haast's eagle, became extinct in the 1400s. They were top terrestrial predators and the world's largest raptors. The average Haast's eagle weighed more than 31 pounds, grew to 5 feet in length, and stood at nearly 3 feet tall. They were actually 40% larger than the largest living eagles, and their beaks and talons were twice the size of any modern eagle. Because of their unusual size and strength, these terrifying creatures hunted humans on a regular basis.
The Abyss.
Congratulations if you made it to this point in the video. This is the final layer of the iceberg, the Abyss. There's only one entry in this layer. Germany killer rats. Let me explain it in a nutshell. The entry refers to a horrific incident that happened in the island of Mallorca, where a homeless man was partially eaten alive by rodents. Frank Herman was a homeless man living under a bridge who survived by eating scraps thrown away by a local supermarket and begging. Sometime during 2013, Frank was found trying to crawl out from under the bridge, where he had been sleeping. He was in a very bad condition and had bite marks all over his body. He was taken to the hospital, and the doctors who were treating him reported that the marks on his body indicate that he was being eaten alive by rodents. Frank died a couple of days later in the hospital from massive organ failure. In 2011, also in the island of Mallorca, an elderly woman was found dead in her home after being bitten by rats. The unnamed woman, who was in her 80s, had been bedbound as a result of a stroke. She was taken to the hospital but died 2 weeks later. So that's it. This is the end of the iceberg. May all the people who died in these brutal attacks rest in peace.
A mysterious massive metal sphere has been discovered on a Japanese beach, leaving locals and netizens stunned and speculating about its mysterious origins. The almost 1.5-meter wide sphere, with 2 raised handles and an orangish, rusty exterior, was found on Enchuhama Beach in the city of Hamamatsu by a passerby who reported it to the authorities. Police quickly sent a bomb squad to investigate and to ensure the safety of the area, blocking off a 200-meter radius around the object. Upon inspection, it was discovered that the sphere is hollow and likely had been hooked to something else. The origin of the sphere is unknown, and authorities have confirmed that it poses no threat. Speculations are flying as to what this sphere could be. Internet sleuths have called it everything from a Godzilla egg to a Dragon Ball from the popular anime of the same name. Others have even suggested it could be a piece of espionage technology or a spy balloon, following the recent reports of the US shooting down a large Chinese spy balloon and the removal of smaller objects from airspace over Canada, Alaska, and Lake Huron. Despite these wild theories, it is most likely that the sphere is a detached mooring buoy. These objects are usually floating, permanent objects that secure vessels while in deep or shallow water. However, no one knows for sure, and the mystery only deepens. One unnamed local man claimed that the sphere has been on the beach for some time now, and he even tried to push it but couldn't budge it. As local authorities continue to investigate and study the object, the world awaits eagerly for answers. Could this sphere be a remnant of an ancient civilization, a futuristic technology, or perhaps even an extraterrestrial object? Only time will tell. So, what do you think this mysterious sphere could be? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more intriguing content like this. This is the Turk, a mechanical chess-playing robot from the 1700s that was basically unbeatable. For almost 90 years, it toured the world facing some of the best chess players and historical figures and beating them all, but no one ever figured out how it worked or if it was actually real or not. The Turk was in fact operated by a chess master hidden inside the machine at all times. The operator would slide forward on a movable chair and open a hidden door inside the Turk's body, revealing a chessboard and a mechanical lever which would control the Turk's arm. Under each square was a small magnet dangling from a copper wire. As his opponent picked up a chess piece, the corresponding magnet would drop and wobble for about 30 seconds, allowing the operator to see what piece had moved and replicated on his own chessboard. The mechanical Turk played hundreds if not thousands of games and won almost all of them. Over its nearly 90-year exhibition history, the Turk faced many renowned figures, including Napoleon Bonaparte and Edgar Allan Poe. In 1809, Napoleon tested the Turk with unconventional moves, including illegal ones, to gauge its responses. The Turk reportedly swiped pieces off the board or reset them in response to rule-breaking. The Turk captivated audiences with its blend of mystery and mechanical ingenuity. Its ability to simulate intelligence created a cultural fascination with the boundary between human and machine capabilities. Even after its secret was revealed, the Turk story continued to inspire innovation and remains a symbol of both technological ambition and the allure of illusion.
During the Middle Ages, an unspeakable act of barbarism was taking place throughout Central and Western Europe. Thousands of cats were being burned alive as a form of entertainment for the public. During these dark ages, cat burning was thought to bring good luck and fortune. They would put dozens of cats in nets, cages, and barrels over a large bonfire and watch them as they burned to death. According to Welsh historian Norman Davies, people shrieked with laughter as the animals, howling with pain, were singed, roasted, and finally carbonized. And according to American historian Robert Darnton, crowds made bonfires, jumped over them, danced around them, and threw into them objects with magical power, hoping to avoid disaster and obtain good fortune during the rest of the year. A favorite object was cats. Cats tied up in bags, cats suspended from ropes, or cats burned at stake. Parisians liked to incinerate cats by the sackful, while the Couramos of Saint-Chamond preferred to chase a flaming cat through the streets. In parts of Burgundy and Lorraine, they danced around a kind of burning maypole with a cat tied to it. In the Metz region, they burned a dozen cats at a time in a basket, on top of a bonfire. While this barbaric act occurred in many places throughout Central and Western Europe, like Britain for example, it was particularly common in France. French kings often witnessed it and even ceremoniously started the bonfires themselves. Cat burning was considered a midsummer routine in France. It is believed that King Charles IX once threw a live fox into one of the bonfires for extra amusement. Born in 1875, Samuel Hose was a young African-American man who grew up on a farm in Macon County, owned by the Jones family, where his mother had been working as a servant. Sam learned how to read and write, and most of the people who knew him described him as intelligent and friendly. Sam had plans to pursue higher education, but due to some circumstances, he had no choice but to work as a manual laborer instead. In 1899, Sam left Macon County and went to Coweta County, where he got employed by the Cranford family. Sometime during that same year, Sam Hose's employer, Alfred Cranford, was found dead in his home. His head appeared to be split by an axe, and his wife, Mattie, was raped. Sam was accused of committing the heinous crime, and he was apprehended on April 23, 1899 in Marshallville. Sam told the authorities that he had requested time off to visit his mother, because she was ill. According to Hose, Alfred Cranford refused, and threatened to kill him and pointed a revolver at him. Hose claimed that, due to the threat, he acted in self-defense by throwing an axe to Cranford's head, killing him instantly. While Sam was being returned to Coweta County by a train, a mob kidnapped him at gunpoint and took him to the jail, where a dispute arose between them and the sheriff. The mob agreed to surrender Sam, but only if they were paid their reward money. For some reason, the mob became furious and decided to kidnap Sam once again, this time taking him to a forest so that the authorities won't be able to find him. It is believed that by the time Sam was taken to the forest, the mob had grown to anywhere between 500 to 2,000 individuals. Sam's genitals, ears, and fingers were severed using a knife. He was then repeatedly stabbed by multiple members of the mob. The skin from his face was removed, and his body was doused with kerosene. The mob then chained him to a tree and burned him alive. As the flames consumed Hose's body, he screamed out in agony, "Oh my God! Oh Jesus!" Multiple witnesses recount that the fire was so intense that Ho's veins ruptured, and his eyes nearly burst from their sockets. One witness reported that the crowd watched with unfeigned satisfaction as Ho's body was contorting. It is believed that Sam Ho suffered for an entire 30 minutes on the hands of the mob. Following Ho's death, members of the mob took pieces from his dead body as souvenirs and decorations. Other pieces like the heart and liver were also taken and sold in town. Detective Louis Leven was sent to investigate the lynching of Sam Ho's. It was later concluded that Ho's acted in self-defense when he killed Alfred Cranford, and that the rape allegation was fabricated to incite a lynching. The Nanjing Massacre was a horrific atrocity that was committed by the Imperial Japanese Army against Chinese citizens and surrendering soldiers during the Second World War. The death toll is estimated to be anywhere between 100,000 to 300,000. And tens of thousands of women and young girls were sexually assaulted. On November 11, 1937, after the Japanese troops secured control of Shanghai, they began to march towards the city of Nanjing. By December, the troops have already reached the borders of Nanjing. The Chinese troops were overwhelmed by the invading force and they weren't able to defend the city, so most of them decided to retreat to the other side of the Yangtze River. On the 13th of December, the Japanese troops entered the city and began annihilating its citizens. Hundreds of thousands of civilians and injured soldiers filled the two major streets of Nanjing in a state of panic, and the Japanese troops relentlessly fired at them with tanks and artilleries. Dead bodies of men, women, children, elders covered the two major streets. And the streets were later called the Streets of Blood as a result of the two-day annihilation. A large number of Chinese soldiers had already been captured on the borders of Nanjing before the Japanese troops raided the city. The soldiers that were trapped inside the city removed their military uniforms and disguised themselves as civilians. On the 17th of December, the Japanese troops arrested anybody who was suspected to be a Chinese soldier. A huge number of young men were arrested, and they were then sent to the suburbs to be massacred, in an excavation known as the 10,000 Corpse Ditch. Some captives were lucky enough to receive a quick death by machine gun execution, while others were unfortunate enough to be burned alive or gassed. The cruelty of the Japanese troops doesn't end there. They committed numerous heinous atrocities against the innocent citizens of Nanjing. They invented and exercised the most inhumane and barbaric methods of killing imaginable. The war crimes committed against the people of Nanjing would include bayoneting infants in front of their mothers, decapitations, cutting open the abdomen of children, excavating the hearts out of the victims' bodies and eating them, drowning elderly women, burning civilians alive, stabbing the bodies and the eyes of victims with an awl, and even mutilations of female vaginas using bayonets. There are also many accounts of Japanese soldiers forcing families to commit incestuous acts under gunpoint. Sons were forced to engage in sexual activities with their mothers and sisters, and the fathers were forced to engage in sexual activities with their children. According to two U.S. news correspondents, Frank Tillman and Archibald Steele, who were present in Nanjing when the Great Massacre took place, corpses of massacred Chinese soldiers formed mountains that were 6 feet high at the Nanjing-Yijiang Gate in the north. After the Japanese troops were done massacring the citizens of Nanjing, they began looting numerous stores, houses, and hotels. And they burned down houses and newly built government buildings. American historian and writer Jonathan Spence wrote, "There is no obvious explanation for this grim event, nor can one be found. The Japanese soldiers, who had expected easy victory, instead had been fighting hard for months and had taken infinitely higher casualties than anticipated. They were bored, angry, frustrated, tired. The Chinese women were undefended, their menfolk powerless or absent. The war, still undeclared, had no clear-cut goal or purpose. Perhaps all Chinese, regardless of sex or age, seemed marked out as victims." Anthropodermic bibliopagy was a practice in the 18th and 19th century that involved binding books in human skin. Yes, you heard that right, human skin. What you are looking at right now is a book with a cover made from actual human skin. One anthropodermic book was bound in the skin of an unclaimed female mental patient who died of natural causes. Some anthropodermic books were bound in the skin of criminals. And some were even bound in the skin of people who wanted to be memorialized in the form of a book. Only 18 books of this kind still exist, or at least, these are the only ones that have been discovered so far. They can be found in museums and libraries like the Wellcome Library and the Surgeons Hall Museum. Who knows how many anthropodermic books out there that we still haven't discovered yet? If you enjoyed this episode, maybe you should consider subscribing, because I upload episodes like this on a regular basis. Also be sure to hit the like button, because that'll immensely help the video get seen by more people who are interested in this type of content. Thank you for watching.